The great Neil Oliver is tonight's outsider. Now, the reality of green extremism is edging ever closer, with Britain's Wokest Council introducing motoring lockdowns for thousands of people in Oxford. I promise you, when I read this last night, I thought it was a hoax, but it's real. Under the guise of reducing climate carbon emissions, Oxfordshire County Council is dividing the city into 6 specific zones, with motorists allowed to leave their own neighbourhood just 100 times a year. Averaging just 2 trips a week, Oxford residents will be forced to apply for a permit with the council if they want to drive to other areas. Their cars will be tracked by cameras all across the city, and if they visit another neighbourhood without permission or exceed their 2 trips a week, they'll be slapped with £70 fines. Now, can we just be frank about this? This is mission creep towards draconian climate lockdowns, which I've been raising as a real possibility now for the past 2 years, and obviously been derided and dismissed as a conspiracy theorist. But don't be surprised if the powers that be next limit your weekly consumption of meat or cut your air travel under the facade of saving the planet. Neil Oliver, I mean, what's this about? What is this really about, Neil?
This is the most laughable nonsense yet. If it wasn't deadly serious, and if it wasn't something against which we should all man the barricades, absolutely, then it would just be a joke. If the people of Oxford, if people anywhere, even hypothetically, accept this for 5 minutes, then they are whipped dogs. And anyone who would put up with this deserves whatever the overlords plan next. But I don't think the people of Britain are whipped dogs, not in the least. And this is about control. It has always been about control. You know, you and I have been saying variations on the theme of it's never about what they say it's about. And the more this progresses, the more you can see the pattern so blatantly exposed before our eyes. You know, COVID wasn't about health. You know, the war in Ukraine is not about saving democracy. And the Agenda 2030 and the rest of the green agenda are not about saving the planet. If you cannot see that the underlying plan, the blueprint beneath all of it, is simply to impose, to seize, control, impose that upon people. If you can't see that by now, then you are as desensitized as a blind cobbler's thumb. It is absolutely obvious and irrefutable that this kind of nonsense that is being suggested by the councillors or whatever in Oxford, if you can't see it for what it is, then there's no help for you. If this was proposed where I live, I swear to you, Dan, I would put rhubards on the front of my car and drive through the barriers and ram the cameras. This is beyond the pale. Just because a council, just because some trumped-up, self-appointed gauleiters make something legal does not make it lawful. There is a profound and fundamental difference between legal and lawful. This is not lawful. To curtail deliberately the freedoms of law-abiding people is not lawful. If you cast your mind back, you've seen the tapes of the David Frost interviews with Richard Nixon after he had resigned as President of the United States, and Frost asked him if what he had done in sanctioning the burglary of the Watergate building was against the law. Nixon said, if the president does it, then it's legal. And the same thought carries through here. Just because these people say that what they propose to do is legal and that therefore the population must abide by it, no. There comes a time for free people when they have to identify, recognise and understand that what is being proposed is immoral and unlawful. And it then becomes actually the obligation of free, law-abiding people to ignore, defy and throw out such attempts to impinge upon the freedom of law-abiding people.
Well, indeed, and this is why we keep hearing all of the doomsday drumbeat about the climate emergency, isn't it, Neil? Because they want to be able to justify emergency measures, just like they did unnecessarily during the COVID pandemic.
If a government can get away with murder because there's an emergency, then of course they will find reasons to say that there is an emergency, and that's what's going on here. I say that and many people like me, and of course many people far more qualified than I am, say that what is being imposed at the moment is a climate hoax. At the very least, we are being duped into thinking that we are in some kind of catastrophic situation because of the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. And because we have been brainwashed and bullied and propagandized to that effect, people are being forced to keep their heads down while all sorts of restrictions are being imposed upon their lives on the grounds that we, the human race, are destroying the planet. It is an inexcusable fraud that is being imposed upon people, and it is legitimising Agenda 2030 and the rest of it. And again, the same as COVID and the rest, it's not about what they say it's about. This is a power grab. This is about people exploiting whatever situation is at hand to take control of people's lives. Something like communism runs in the blood of the people that are behind this. They have in their heads the notion of a blueprint for what they think trolls like you and me should be, how they think we should behave, how we should live, what we should do every moment of the day. And they want to sit back and watch us comply with the diktats that they're setting down. And they've got some fantasy about
communism. Are all over this.
About watching us standing on the pavements, watching the Politburo drive by in their cars. That's what they want. That's what they're about. And if any of us have any sense, we will absolutely say no.
Totally. The echoes of communism all over this. Neil Oliver, perfectly put. And Neil's back, 6 p.m.
So, what do you think about that then, people? Bit 1984-ish, isn't it? Total control. You won't be able to leave your city. This is what they're trying to do in Oxford. And I think they're talking about experimenting the same sort of idea in, I think it's Canterbury in Kent. They're talking about it a while back. I think it's 2024 they're talking about it, but that's not going to go down very well, is it? The city divided up into like about 6 different zones. If you drive out of your own area, you'll get a £70 fine. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? It's just control freaks are like trying to get their way. If no one takes any notice of it, they won't be able to do anything about it. If everybody just carries on, but people have been so brainwashed by the last couple of years, they're liable to succumb to anything, aren't they? But it's the usual thing. It's only going to end when we say it ends. So if everybody stands up together and say, "Oh no, not going to take notice of that," they just have to back down, won't they?